Hey guys, welcome to this quick update on Bitcoin. I'm not sure if it's going to be quick, it might be long, but welcome anyways. So I apologize if I sound a little stuffy and congested. I've been a little sick lately. I don't think it's the coronavirus that's been going around, but you never know. Alright, so the first thing I want to mention, please read the disclaimer on the screen. Please do not take this as investment or trading advice. This is purely information. You should take this for informational purposes only. Always make your own trading decisions based on your own plan and research. Okay, the next thing I want to mention is if you do enjoy this video after you've watched it, please do give it a like and subscribe. It would help me out. And let's get into the Bitcoin update. So I want to start by going back to December of 2019. So that was the recent low we had before the market crash that we'll talk about in a few minutes. So December 2019, we can see Bitcoin sort of formed this bottoming pattern, kind of like that. So I did anticipate that the price would go up to the 10.5. I actually expected it to go to 11.5, go a little higher than it did, but it ended up topping out at around $10,500, almost exactly. So yeah, after it hit 10.5k, we had a little dip, which brought us down to 8,400. And then a small continuation rising wedge there, and I don't think anyone could have anticipated what was going to happen next, all the way from 9,200 to the low of 3,850. So we could debate the reasons for this all day long. Some people say it's because of coronavirus. Some people say the news is completely responsible. Some people say Bitcoin crashed because the stock market crashed. We could debate that all day. I'm not going to talk about that in this video. But the fact is, it did crash. So it formed a new bottom around 3850, we'll say. So yeah, personally, my method of trading and investing is purely technical. So I look to technical patterns and methods for all of my trading decisions. I don't focus much on the news. I'm not a believer in the fundamental method. That's just the way I trade and invest. Of course, you should trade and invest using whatever method works for you. But for me, it's purely technical. So yeah, with this new bottom that's formed, we have formed a rising trend line across the bottom, which I will draw for you here. So yeah, that's our new trend line. It's formed, basically it's now 2 touch points. That was the first touch point. We have a second touch point, so we can safely assume that's our new trend line that's forming across the bottom. Now, if the price of Bitcoin falls to retest that level, right around this area, 4,000 to, let's say, 4,500 level, if it falls to retest this trend line, I would say that's a bearish signal. So we can consider that very dangerous if the price of Bitcoin should drop to retest that level, and we should be very careful if that happens. Okay, the next thing I want to mention is the 200 weekly moving average. Okay, so it's been quite an important moving average when it comes to Bitcoin's history. So historically, we can see that Bitcoin has remained above the 200 weekly moving average, which is this red line that you see here. So in December of 2018, we can see after that parabolic move upwards, Bitcoin fell back down to retest the 200 weekly moving average, and it did not break below. Okay, it held that level, and it formed another bottoming pattern right on the 200 weekly moving average. So it has been a very important level, I would say, that we should watch for. So now coming back to the recent crash we had in March, we can see again Bitcoin fell to retest the 200 weekly moving average. It did break below the average, however, it did not close too far below it, just a little bit there, but the very next weekly candle we see rebounded back above the average. So it's looking a little weak there, but it's still, we can safely say it still did close again above the 200 moving average and is now making its way upwards. I wouldn't say it's the strongest bullish price movement that we've ever seen, but at this point we have to just make decisions on what we can see, and what we see is Bitcoin bounced off the 200 weekly moving average and has been bullish ever since. So next I want to show you guys just how important the 200 weekly moving average has been in Bitcoin's history. So we can look as far back as 2015 to see that in the entirety of Bitcoin's history it has not fallen below this moving average. So it's a pretty significant factor that we need to look at. Of course, it's not the only factor, but from what we can see, Bitcoin has never closed below that average. So I would say it's a fairly strong indicator of price movement. So there are some differences between 2015 and the present day that I've been noticing. I'll bring your attention to. Maybe you'll agree, maybe you disagree. If you disagree with me, please let me know in the comments below. So after Bitcoin's parabolic move of 2013 to around $1,200, it fell back down again. So it kind of, at that point, it stayed at the 200 weekly moving average and formed a bottoming pattern. So it didn't really gyrate a lot from its lows, relatively speaking. So it kind of just sat at this point and formed a nice bottoming. That's kind of what you want to see in terms of a market bottom, a good stable bottoming formation to set the foundation for the strong move upwards that we saw after that. So if we're comparing that to what's happened recently in Bitcoin, as we can see, December of 2018, Bitcoin had another parabolic move, a huge rise up to $19,000, $20,000. It fell back down to retest the 200 weekly moving average, as we see there. Once again, it bottomed, and that bottoming took it up to the recent highs that we saw of $13,000, $14,000. But it didn't form a very strong bottoming pattern. As you can see, it was kind of like a touch and a go. So it touched the 200 weekly moving average and shot back up again. So to me, that's not as strong, relatively speaking, as we saw in 2015. To me, that's not the basis that we want to see for a strong bull market continuation like we saw after 2015 going up to 2018. So it peaked out at 20,000, it touched, it went back up again, and now it comes back down once again to retest the 200 moving average. So in terms of the next Bitcoin bull run for the long-term future, that's not the strongest thing we want to see. So ideally what we want to see going forward is for Bitcoin to kind of hug this 200 moving average, maybe form another bottoming pattern of some sort. We'll have to see how it plays out in the future, and then after that happens, we can see a steady rise from there. I don't actually see that happening at this point, but again, we'll have to wait and see what happens in further developments. So again, if Bitcoin drops to retest this 200 weekly moving average in the near future, and if it breaks below it, we're talking about a retest of this rising trend line that I drew here around the $4,000 level. If that happens, it could be very dangerous for Bitcoin. If we don't start to see some sort of a bottoming pattern happen soon, that's very possible for the future of Bitcoin. And like I said before, if it retests this trend line and breaks below it, we're talking about quite a bearish move to follow after that. But I will keep you posted with further developments on Bitcoin. If you did like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks a lot. See you next time.